let's talk about kind of everybody's favorite fish, the sharks. Chondriichthyes. These are the animals that have a skeleton made of cartilage. This would also include the stingrays, manta ray, so any of the rays, sharks' rays, and skates are going to be in Chondriichthyes. There are about 800 living species in class Chondriichthyes. They are very swift, quick, and agile predators. This is made possible by their fins. Fins obviously help fish swim. The caudal fin, or the tail, is attached to the posterior end of the body, provides most of the forward propulsion. So if you ever watched a shark swim, you can see that tail, or caudal fin as it's called, is always going side to side. They possess what is called near neutral buoyancy, which means they don't float and they do sink, but they sink very slowly because their body is almost the same density as water, which would give them neutral buoyancy, which means they would suspend in the water. They don't float, and they are just a little bit more dense than water, which is why they sink. So to stay off the bottom, they have to keep swimming. When they stop swimming, they will slowly come to rest on the bottom. And this is because they have no swim bladder. And we're going to find out that bony fish have a swim bladder, and we'll talk about that when we get there. This is why they will sink when they stop swimming. Their swimming is aided by the maintenance of an overall density that is nearly equal to that of water, which I kind of just said on the last slide. This eliminates the need to expand energy to keep from sinking or floating to the surface. So if they want to go to the surface, they have to swim there. Their skin is very tough, is covered with a very special kind of scale. It aids the cartilaginous skeleton in supporting the body in swimming. The type of scale they have is called a placoid scale. They have backward pointing spines that reduce hydrostatic drag. So the way the water goes over their bodies, the scales kind of create a boundary of water that, because water will go smoothly over other water than it will over the shark's body. So the way the scales create tiny eddies in the flow of water, so that there's a layer of water always around the shark, molecules of water around the shark, and so the water they're swimming through slides over the layer of water and makes them very, very streamlined. Kind of an amazing wonderment of nature. So this is a look of their scales. If you look at them microscopically, you can see these ridges and these grooves, and that's what creates the tiny eddy of water right there, and it allows them to, instead of being totally smooth, that creates that layer of water that allows them to just simply and effortlessly slip right on through the water. Feeding and digestion. Their teeth are merely placoid scales that became enlarged as they migrate over the jaw. So their teeth are very, very similar to their scales. Their scales are sometimes also referred to as dermal denticles, which means teeth skin. And so their structure is very similar to their teeth, or vice versa. Their teeth are very similar to their scales. They are numerous, sharp, and curved into the mouth. The loose attachment of both jaws to the cranium allows them to open widely to engulf larger prey or large pieces of prey. They don't chew. If their prey is too large to swallow whole, then they just section off bite-sized pieces that are small enough for them to swallow. So here's a look at their teeth. And as you can see, they all are different, but they all show the same basic plan. And one of the things to take note is, on one of the other pictures you'll notice, in some of these you can see the edge is serrated. You can see the jaggedness there on the edge, and this makes their teeth very sharp. So they talk about, people always comment on what their jaw power must be, and their jaws are very powerful, but when you have razor sharp teeth, your jaws don't need to have bone crushing power, because you just simply cut through the tissue to get your bite-sized piece. So here's a great picture of a great white tooth, and you can tell it clearly shows the serrations there on the edge. And if you've ever used a serrated knife, you know how sharp they are. Bony fish, osteichthyes. They have a bony skeleton and a swim bladder. So the swim bladder is a tiny air sac in their body that allows them to either float or sink depending on how much air they have in that bladder. So it's very similar to a submarine. Submarines have air tanks that they use to either ascend or descend depending on the buoyancy of that ship. So a submarine can just sit still in one spot and suspend in that area because of the air tanks they have. Bony fish can do the same thing. A bony fish can just stop swimming and sit motionless in one spot, and they can float up to the top if they want to, or they can sink or just stay suspended in that spot. And that is the ability of the swim bladder. One of the groups of osteichthyes is the lobe-finned fishes. They have very meaty bases to their fins, kind of is believed to have evolved into legs, but that's one of the differences between the groups of fishes. They get their name due to most having fleshy lobes at the base of their lateral fins. They include lungfish and the coelacanth, which is the coelacanth is a big old fish that was at one point thought to be extinct, but a guy off the coast of Africa caught one in the 60s, and when you catch one, it's good evidence that they're not extinct anymore. This is the oldest living group of fish. The lobed fins may be homologous to the limb bones of tetrapods, or they're going to develop into legs, which is what I just mentioned. So here's a picture of a coelacanth, very prehistoric. There are fossils of this fish. So this fish has been around long enough that it has ancestors that are fossils. And if you know anything about how geology, it takes a long time for an organism to become a fossil. So they've been around a long time. The lobe fins and the presence of lungs is why they are generally thought to be the ancestor of amphibians and 7 other tetrapods. All right, so very ancient species, very old species of fish. And then you look at that tail, you can tell that tail is a distinct. See how it is even on top and bottom? This is evidence that it is a very old species of fish. The ray-finned fishes, these are the fish where they don't have those lobes. It's all just bones and skin. They are a more familiar fish we are accustomed to. They have fins without the lobes, but are reinforced by bony rays. Okay, so in this group we have superorder Condostrii. These are the paddlefish and sturgeons. This is a sturgeon. Sturgeon is one of the largest freshwater species of fish on the planet. And if you are familiar with caviar, that delicacy, caviar is sturgeon eggs. That's what fish eggs from sturgeon. That's what caviar is, and is considered in certain very fancy circles to be a delicacy. The other group are the paddlefish. This is the largest subclass of fish. Is Actinopterygii. Man, that's another fun word to say. So go ahead, take a minute, say that a few times. There are about 18,000 species. And so this, of course, is a paddlefish. This is a freshwater fish actually found in the Ohio River, and they are a protected species. But this is a very old group of fish as well. We start to move into the other groups of fish. The Condostrii, they have primitive features, almost shark-like with ventral mouths, so their mouths are kind of tucked under their body, unfused upper jaw, and largely cartilaginous skeleton. And then we move to another member of Condostrii. This is a gar, and the alligator gar of the south can get very big, and we're talking over 100 pounds. And they're called the alligator gar because this mouth lined with teeth is structurally similar to the way an alligator mouth looks. And then we move to the next group, Teleostei. They are the more common ray finned fishes. These are the fish that we are familiar with. The fins are supported by calcified fin rays. They are either stiff and unjointed spines or flexible and branching fins. The pectoral fins are more lateral and behind the gills, so they're up on the side of the body, right behind the gills. This is considered to be more advanced, gives them more maneuverability. Gills are covered by the operculum, which is a bony plate, leaving one singular gill slit on each side. So if you've seen pictures of sharks, they have the 4, 5, or 6 slits on the side, but a largemouth bass just has the one opening to the gill chamber. So speaking of largemouth bass, here he is. So this, to show some of the things we've talked about. So here is the operculum. That's the bony plate that covers the gills. And this edge right here is the one open slit. So water goes in the mouth, past the gills, and out that opening. That's how they breathe. And then you'll notice this is the pectoral fin. And as you can see, it is on the side of the body, not down here on the bottom, which if you go and you look at the other fish that we've seen, those fins are down there on the bottom. Okay, so now we're at the end of fish. That's the last part of fish. We are now finished. You have just finished lesson 2, video lesson 2B. So that's all the fish. So now you can go on over to Schoology and take your exit slip on video lesson 2A and 2B. Okay, so good job and thanks for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow.